This week marks the 50th anniversary of the assassination of John F. Kennedy, and unless you've been living under a rock, you'll notice the deluge of JFK-themed programs airing on the likes of National Geographic, History Channel, and many other major networks. They'll also be complemented by a number of editorials and feature stories appearing in mainstream media outlets over the next few days. The vast majority of these shows and editorials will attempt to prop up the ludicrous conspiracy theory, disbelieved by a clear majority of Americans for decades, that a lone gunman was responsible for the assassination of JFK. On the other hand, some will invent even more ludicrous conspiracy theories, like claiming the Secret Service agent George Hickey accidentally shot Kennedy in order to divert from the notion of a deliberate wider plot. Note the tone of pieces such as this Dallas Morning News article, which calls for an emphatic rejection of fanciful conspiracy theories while bellowing that it's time to accept that Lee Harvey Oswald killed President John F. Kennedy all by himself. You can almost sense the adolescent, whiny, toys out of the pram attitude of the establishment in its desperate bid to constantly reinforce this narrative in the face of polls which show that Americans still aren't buying it. The latest Gallup poll reveals that 61% of Americans believe there was more than just one person involved in the plot to kill Kennedy. Note, however, that this is the lowest percentage in 50 years. So all these expensive television specials and all those browbeating editorials and feature stories are obviously having the desired effect. And we can trace this all the way back to the 1967 CIA document 1035-960, which reveals how the agency sought to aggressively apply and weaponize the pejorative term conspiracy theorist in order to impugn anyone who dared question the Warren Commission's conclusion, adding that such efforts were necessary to safeguard, quote, the whole reputation of the American government. But who here are the real conspiracy theorists? The people who say that Oswald, in his most tense, nerve-wracked and adrenaline-filled moment, using a clunky Carcano bolt-action weapon, managed to get off 3 shots in 6 seconds, hitting a moving target twice, a feat that could not be replicated by 2 different crack FBI teams, an Italian army unit, and a separate team of firearm experts who did a scientific test for CBS News. Are they the conspiracy theorists? The people who say that a magic single bullet caused 7 wounds in 2 different people, are they the conspiracy theorists? The people who say that 15 JFK assassination witnesses who've been interviewed by the Warren Commission, Dallas Police, or the FBI, dying prematurely and in bizarre ways between the years 1963 to 1967, was a perfectly normal phenomenon, when an actuary calculated that the odds of this happening naturally were 100,000 trillion to 1. Are they the conspiracy theorists? The official narrative is the conspiracy theory because it's based on a conspiracy with nothing but a theory and no hard evidence to back it up. If the lone gunman conspiracy theory is so watertight as the establishment argues, then why, 5 decades after the event, are thousands of pages concerning the investigation into the assassination of JFK still classified? And why is the establishment still so desperate to reinforce the official narrative 50 years after the assassination of JFK? Well, one, because many of the same individuals who were involved in or had knowledge of the assassination plot are still very much active within the military-industrial complex today. And 2, because if the establishment is ever forced to admit that, yes, a wider conspiracy involving people in positions of high power was responsible for the assassination of Kennedy, then that places the official narrative of every major event since that time, from the Vietnam War to 9/11 to both Gulf Wars to the death of Osama bin Laden, under suspicion. Still to this day, the notion that Lee Harvey Oswald alone was responsible for the death of JFK is part of the cracking edifice that holds up the legitimacy of the US military-industrial complex and the US government itself. And that's why the mainstream media establishment, which itself is but a mouthpiece for that very same military-industrial complex, is more desperate than ever to reinforce the official narrative during this week's 50th anniversary of the death of John F. Kennedy. Hit the subscribe button, check us out on Twitter at twitter.com/prisonplanet. I'm Paul Joseph Watson reporting for Infowars.com.